Dr. Brian Scott with you. We have been studying Matthew chapter 24 as it pertains to the end times. Jesus was answering questions about when the end of the age would come and what would be the sign of his coming. And he has provided us with a statement about deception in verse 4, about false Christs who will deceive many in verse 5, about wars and rumors of wars in verse 6, and nation against nation and kingdom against kingdom in verse 7. And then he has been sharing with us in the latter part of verse 7 that we would see famines and pestilence and earthquakes. We've dealt with famines and pestilence yesterday. We're looking at earthquakes today as a sign of the end times. And it's rather interesting because I live in southern Ontario, here in North America, and we seldom hear of any earthquakes on the North American continent of any magnitude. From time to time, there will be an eruption along the western side of the nation or the continent, but we don't hear too often about things of this nature occurring. They seem to occur elsewhere in the world, and because of that, it's the old NIMBY thing, not in my backyard. So where Jesus said we're going to see famines and pestilence and earthquakes, we don't see famines in North America. We don't see earthquakes for the most part in North America. Pestilence, we have seen that, especially the last 30 months with the COVID-19 pandemic. But for the most part, we're kind of removed from all of these signs that he's referring to. So let me share some statistics on earthquakes. It's rather interesting. From the year 2009 to 2021, that's a 13-year period, there were 23,679 earthquakes. That averages around 1,820 earthquakes a year. I didn't know that. You probably didn't know that either. The 10 worst earthquakes since the 20th century began, since 1900, have all measured 8.0 or higher on the Richter scale. That means massive destruction, huge destruction. Let me just define the Richter scale from my research for you. It measures the strength of an earthquake. It's based on wavelengths and all kinds of scientific data, but suffice it to say, each level on the Richter scale is 10 times greater than the previous level. For instance, a Richter scale 2.0 earthquake is 10 times greater than a 1.0 Richter scale earthquake, 10 times greater. A 3.0 is 10 times greater than a 2.0, but that turns into being 100 times greater than a 1.0. A 4.0, for instance, is 10 times greater than a 3, which is 10 times greater than a 2, which is 10 times greater than a 1. But a 4.0 Richter scale earthquake is 1,000 times greater than a 1.0. And when you get up to a 5.0, you are 10,000 times greater than a 1.0. You're 1,000 times greater than a 2.0. So it really increases substantially. It's exponential increase. If we were to suffer a 3.0 Richter scale earthquake, it would be the equivalent of setting off 20,000 kilograms of dynamite. Now, I don't know if we can imagine what that would mean, but pretty serious. And a 5.0 earthquake would be equivalent to 20 million kilograms of dynamite. Wow, 20 million kilograms of dynamite being set off. Since the 1900s, there have been 10,000 earthquakes that were greater than 6.0. So, once again, this is information I was not aware of. And when Jesus says we'll see earthquakes, like, wow, okay, so what? We don't have them here as a rule, almost never. So what? But it's a huge thing. Now, my research, I did most of the research for this particular segment on Saturday afternoon, October 15th, just about 12 days ago. And on that Saturday afternoon, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, as I did the research, there had been 338 earthquakes that day. One day, 338 earthquakes. There were 7 that were greater than 5.0 on the Richter scale. And there were 29 that were greater than 4.0 on the Richter scale. So pretty serious, pretty large numbers. Jesus warned that we would see earthquakes in these last days. If you were to go back and study what we have already shared in our insights, you will find that there are 3 major earthquakes going to occur during the 7 years of tribulation. The first one that occurs is coincidental with the Ezekiel 38-39 war. There will be a massive earthquake at that time. Secondly, there will be an earthquake that occurs at the mid-tribulation point of the 7-year period. And then thirdly, there's a massive earthquake that occurs at the Battle of Armageddon. So even in that 7-year period, it starts halfway through and at the end with massive earthquakes. Now, since we're spared these earthquakes, it doesn't mean a whole lot to us. But we should be aware that around the world, earthquakes are occurring on a regular, frequent basis, and it's bringing severe destruction and a great deal loss of life. But during the tribulation, it is going to be even more intense. Yes, we are in the last days. Praise the Lord. I've got current events for you tomorrow. Look forward to seeing you then. Bye for now.